Welcome, everybody, to the Competition Archery Media Podcast, where we explore all things pertaining to competition archery. The CAM Podcast is brought to you by B3 Archery. And today, special guest, first time on the podcast. I don't know how that's possible. Joel Turner from Shot IQ. Joel, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Joel, we've talked so many times over the years. When you said, "Hey, I'd like to be on the podcast," I had to stop for a second and say, "Yeah, I've never had Joel on. I don't know how I missed that. That's on me."
Well, you've had Bodie on there several times, and sometimes on podcasts, I like to come in after Bodie to explain some things.
Yes. So, we talked to Bodie after he won Vegas this year. Right. And that's when you contacted me and said, "Hey, there is what he does is able to be replicated." Sure. And you're the one who has figured out what that is and how to replicate it. So Obviously we want to know the secret to archery from Joel Turner.
Well, Grind was talking about Bodie cracking the code, right?
Yes.
And so people are trying to crack the code to precision archery, but they're looking at the wrong code.
Right.
And by that, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
If you were able to give me the one skill, the one life skill that has gotten you through everything, every stressful situation, everything you've been in your life, it gets you out of bed every day. What is that one skill?
The one skill, I would say just perseverance.
Okay. So that's a very common answer to this question. And what we're searching for is basically the ultimate skill of the human being. So when I ask you that question, what's the one skill that has gotten you through everything? Yes. And you tell me perseverance, I will hit you back with, how do you do perseverance?
I just get up and do it.
You're right. So
can't articulate it.
It's perseverance or determination or dedication or mental or discipline or any of those things. Those are not the skills. Those are the results of this skill.
Right.
So if people want to know how to control themselves in high stress situations, you got to know what skill you're looking for in the first place. And so the ultimate skill of the human being, how do you have perseverance? The ultimate skill is getting loud in your head with the right words at the right moments. That's the skill. That's how you manufacture determination. That's how you get discipline. That's how you get perseverance. Those things are not the skill. They are the result of the skill.
Right.
So, and to know, this is the ultimate skill of the human being. So that's what separates what we do at Shot IQ from other instruction. We're just using archery to practice the ultimate skill, to practice getting loud with the right words at the right moments. And that's the code that has been cracked. It's right there in front of our face. We do it all the time, but we don't use it and we don't practice it. I consider myself, now this may be an arrogant statement, but I consider myself the master of the unknown obvious. It's right there in front of our faces, but we don't use it.
Right.
So, if people want to know how Bodie does what he does, this is how it all started. We're not trying to just become a better archer by shooting more arrows, right? We're not practicing the physicality of shooting. Sure, there's form and there's all these things, but you see a lot of professional archers that don't have good form.
Yeah.
How do they possibly do what they do? And so Bodie talks a lot about confidence. Well, what is your definition of confidence?
Me just believing that if I'm doing something, I'm going to be successful at it.
Okay. So, but how can you have confidence in that? You can believe all you want, but if you don't know how you do what you do, you cannot actually generate confidence. The definition of confidence is understanding how you do what you do. So, there's no question on how Bodie's going to shoot his shot.
Yeah.
There's no question on how Chris Perkins is going to shoot his shot.
Right.
But do these people really know how they do what they do? And to know that, you basically have to know what you say and when you say it. Right. So this is how you start to build confidence in precision. And we just, like I said, we use archery. Archery is the tippy top of human concentration. And
I found it interesting when Colby Hanley's doing his road to 30X game.
Sure.
And he asked all these pros what they would do.
Yep.
And I don't remember if Bodie was the only one, but he was one of the only ones who didn't talk about equipment at all. He was like, get yourself mentally together. Everybody else is talking. I know Mike Schlosser was talking about the perfect setup, some other guys, but Bodie was like, fix your mind first.
Right. And you know, that being said, he talked a lot about knowing yourself. Well, that's understanding what you say and when you say it. That's how you know yourself. That's how you know exactly how it's going to go.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of advice that was given, though, and some of it was jokingly, you know, put the pin in the middle and punch a trigger.
Yeah.
Or just, you know, don't even put the pin in the middle, just punch the trigger or whatever. But here's the problem is that people are listening to that, to the advice of the pros. And for a professional archer to say that, that just shows me that that professional archer doesn't know exactly how they do what they do. And this is across the board. I mean, I've trained Major League Baseball players and the same thing.
Right.
They don't know how they do what they do, and then they become coaches. Right? And if you become a coach, but you don't know how you did it. You may have been a superstar, but you don't know how you did it.
Yeah.
You're not a very good coach because you can't transfer the information. And that's what separates myself and Bodie from the rest of the pack, because Bodie teaches this stuff. I teach this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So, and some people will say, well, you don't shoot compound archery. I shoot compounds all the time. I think bare bow is way more challenging.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
And I shoot my bows so much, I'm just going to let Bodie do my compound talking for me. Right?
Yeah.
I can shoot very well, but I don't know. I don't get the. I love the flight of the arrow. I love watching.
Well, I was going to say,
fly.
At the end of the day, archery. I always think of our pro shop manager. He's like, archery is not a need. Archery is a want.
Sure.
You want to shoot bare bow? Shoot bare bow. Who cares that it's not a compound? To you, that's what's fun.
Yeah, and I shoot my bow so much that it becomes a bit boring. Now, that's not saying that shooting 330Xs is an easy feat by any means.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
That's another level. But so once you understand how you do what you do, and this includes shooting a controlled shot, you have to understand what the mental game of precision archery is. So people talk about, and even Bodie talked about it, you know, the mental game, know yourself. Well, what is that? What is the mental game of precision professional archery? What would you say the mental game of archery is, PJ?
I would say just being able to control. I obviously don't know it at the professional level, but in my own terms, I'll say, like, when I have to shoot on camera, for me, that's my pressure situation. I'm not in the tournaments, but if I have to shoot on camera, to me, that's that's my Vegas. And it's just keeping I know 100% that my problem's right here. And the demons just come out there. You're going to miss. You're going to miss. You're not going to do this right. And I am unable mentally to keep that out.
So what I would say is we're going to get back to the mental game. So make sure that I dive into that. But what you're dealing with is what everybody deals with, right?
Yeah.
But understand this. This is a very important concept for you to understand. Thoughts are not thinking. Thoughts are what you hear. Thinking is what you say. Two completely different things. Thoughts have no instruction. Thoughts have no strategy. Thoughts cannot solve a problem. So if you're thinking up there, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss, that has no instruction. That has no strategy. That cannot solve the problem. So What we do with archery, instead of shooting a shot, we use a shot to practice the ultimate skill, which is getting loud with the right words at the right moments. It's you speaking. So what's happening in your shot, especially when you have the camera on you, is that it increases your thought volume. Yeah. Do you think that these guys that are standing on the stage in Vegas have a very high thought volume? Heck yeah, they do.
Yeah, for sure.
But the ones that are still up on the stage for the last 3 or 4 people, those are the people that are able to get the loudest in their own head.
For sure.
Do not try to control thoughts. You cannot control thoughts, but you can always control your thinking, which is your voice, and it's got to be the loudest one in the room.
Right? Mine never is.
Well, that's because, and here's why. Because I don't believe you know what your conversation is during your shot.
Oh, it's everybody screaming. You're gonna miss.
Right.
You're gonna blow it.
That's others. What's your conversation?
I'm just standing there listening.
You're listening.
I'm not saying anything.
So we can both agree that in most arenas in life, it's more important that you listen more than you speak. Right.
Right.
However, that's not true for high stress events. If you find yourself listening in high stress events, you are going to shoot your shot with thoughts alone.
Uh-huh.
So what separates a good professional archer from the rest of the pack is their ability to get loud in their head with the right words at the right moments. Right?
Yes.
So to know what those right words are, though, you have to know the mental game. So people talk about all the time, I'm working on my mental game. I'm working on my, it might be golf, it might be archery, it might be basketball, whatever it is. I'm like, what is that? And they can't give me an explanation for what the mental game is. Well, if you can't explain what the mental game is, you're trying to play a game where you don't know who the opponents are. You don't know where the game is played. You don't know when the game starts, and you don't know what a win feels like. You don't know what the rules of the game are. How can you possibly win that? It's impossible. So what we first had to do was define the mental game. What is the definition of the mental game? The definition of the mental game is understanding where, when, and how to direct your conscious mind into a specific task at a specific moment. That's the definition of the mental game. So, with what you know about archery, let's play the mental game with a precision archery shot.
Okay.
For you, where do you want your conscious mind during your shot?
Where do I want it?
Where do you want
it? Right there on the range, I would imagine.
Right. But I mean, specifically in your shot, do you put it in the aim? Do you put it in the trigger pressure increase?
Oh.
Do you put it in form? Where do you put it?
I'm going to say in the release.
Okay.
So where I'm
specifically, that's the right answer, but specifically in the trigger pressure increase.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the where. We've established the where. That's where you want your conscious mind.
Yep.
When do you want it there, specifically in your shot? When specifically is your moment of truth in your shot?
After I've gotten everything settled to where my pin is where I would like it to be, okay, now I'm ready to activate the shot.
Okay, so that's the when. So specifically, we know that it's after the aim, after you've addressed the trigger, and after you've made a decision to increase concentration.
Yes.
Okay, so like, do you say anything like, here I go, before you start your shot activation movement?
I would say it's more colorful than that.
Okay. Okay.
I would say it's more like, holy crap.
Okay.
Well, now when I'm on the line, or if I'm just practicing, I'm shooting by myself. No, it's just, okay, right about now, I'll say something like, all right, go.
Okay. So that's you with your little toesies hanging over the edge of the cliff.
Yes.
Right? You're about to do a movement that's going to cause your body impact. Your subconscious does not like that.
Right.
So it requires a conscious override. That's your let's go. Or for many people, they say, here I go, before they jump off a cliff into water. Right?
Yeah.
And they won't jump until they actually ready their mind to take impact.
Yeah.
Okay. So the mental game, where do you want your conscious mind? In the trigger pressure increase. When, very specifically, after the aim is complete, after you've then addressed the trigger, and after you've said, here I go, let's go, whatever it is for you. That's your moment of truth. That's the when of the mental game equation. Okay. Now, how do you put it there? We know where we need to put it. We know when we need to put it there. How do you put your conscious mind into a specific task at a specific moment?
I'm going to say I don't think I do.
The how of the mental game equation, how of the mental game equation is always speech. Speech is the vehicle that moves thoughts from the limbic system of the brain to the prefrontal cortex where thinking can occur. So if you're not talking yourself through a pressure increase on the trigger, your subconscious takes it away from you instantly. And that's when you go open loop. That's when you punch the trigger.
Yeah.
Okay. So plugging these problems, these archery problems into the mental game equation is how you solve the problem. So just if you find a problem like, oh, I'm torquing my bow. Okay. So you know you need to lighten up the pressure on your hand, or maybe you need a little bit more thumb pressure, or whatever you need. That's a mental game within itself. So if you need to fix your grip, where do you need your conscious mind? In your grip pressure.
Yeah.
When do you need it there? When I get to full draw. How do you put it there? Speech. Remember, I'm the master of the unknown obvious. It sounds so simple, but this is what we don't do.
I'm good at that part specifically when you're talking about the grip, because that is an issue that I have. And then I tell myself, okay, relax that hand. And I do.
Yep.
But then I can't get the other stuff right.
That's the easy part, because you adjusting your grip does not create an explosion.
Right.
It's the movement that creates the explosion where the conscious override has to occur.
Yeah.
That's where you have to get loud with the right words at the right moment. So let me ask you this.
Okay.
When was the last time that you shot your bow while speaking out loud?
I'm going to say I don't know if I ever have.
Right. So if you never have, then you don't really know what your conversation is. And that's the holdup for your confidence, because you don't really know how you do what you do, because you don't know what you say and when you say it.
So I should be saying it out loud.
You should be talking out loud you only need to do this probably less than 10 shots.
Yeah.
To really figure out what your conversation sounds like, because what we're talking about, this conversation is for a pressure increase that causes an explosion. That requires you to get loud. And here's the cool thing about commentary shooting. You instantly override the thoughts, because you would not draw the bow back. Okay, I got my aim, and now I'm going to address the trigger. You put your thumb on the button, a little bit of pressure, not too much. Okay, that's good. Oh my God, I hope I don't miss. You would never say that when you were teaching somebody else how you shoot how you do what you do.
Right?
So that being said, you always talk like you are teaching. Right? Like you're dealing with somebody else that's having the same problem.
Right.
Like let's say that you're having a problem punching a trigger. You're going too fast on the trigger. It's too fast for you to stop or modify. Therefore, it's open loop. Therefore, there will be pre-ignition movements linked to it. Okay? So let's just say hypothetically that you are increasing pressure on a trigger and you're doing it too fast. You keep giving up on it. You start working in on it, and then now you get this moment, you get this good enough thought.
Yes.
So just take it like you're talking to somebody else with the same problem. Okay. So commentary shot. Okay. I'm drawing back and aiming, pins dancing through the middle. Good as it's going to get. Got it. Okay. Now I'm going to address the trigger. So I've got my finger on the trigger, a little bit of pressure. Got it. Okay. I'm going to ready my mind with here I go. Here I go. Now I'm going to talk myself through the pressure increase. Okay, just a little bit. Easy now. Yep, that's it. Stay in that. That's good. Squeeze. You see, it's not just address the trigger. Here I go. Squeeze. It's you're talking like you're talking somebody else through it.
Yeah.
Okay, easy now, a little bit. Yeah, that's good. Stay in that, right? It's all these little affirmations that you're doing. You're actually talking yourself into the start of the pressure increase on the trigger, because otherwise you get stuck. And that's when the thought volume goes up. Like, let me give you an example with Bodie. In the Lancaster Classic 24, he was shooting all those 12s and doing all the stuff and doing awesome. And he was shooting against Slosher for the final. And there was one shot in there where the commentator's like, oh, it's a long hold for Bodie. Oh, it's a long hold for Bodie, right?
Yeah.
And I'm in the coach's box and I'm looking at the back of Bodie. I'm like, come on, boy. Right? So what was going on in Bodie's head for that long hold? Most people get destroyed by that, but Bodie has a toolbox. Bodie has built a toolbox that he can go into. So there was Bodie. He said on that particular shot, he drew back and his aim was good, actually better than most, right? So he drew back and this particular aim was pretty good. And then he was shooting the Onyx clicker. So he went to the click.
Yeah.
And then he noticed that his release hand was shaking.
Huh.
Okay. So think about what's going on in his head. Aim looks good. Okay. Go to the click. There's the click. Oh my God, my hand's shaking. So that is a thought.
Yeah.
That has no instruction. It has no strategy. So most people, when they get in that, oh my God, my hand is shaking. Oh geez, I hope I don't miss. Wow, I've been in this shot for way too long. Those are all thoughts. They have no instruction. They have no strategy. They cannot solve a problem. So what did Bodie do? Bodie recognized that that his thought volume had gone past his thinking volume. So it had gone past his own voice. So he reached into his toolbox and pulled out the word squeeze. Boom, the shot breaks. And it was an inside out X. But it was a very stale shot. But if Bodie never practiced that, then it would have destroyed him as it destroys most.
Yeah.
Right? So having this toolbox, knowing what you say and when you say it, and practicing that, using shots, using adversity in your shooting. Like, why is it that at Lancaster and Vegas and all these bigger shoots, you will see me in my practice ends shooting on 1 foot? Why in the world? I didn't notice that. Why in the world would I do that? Right? Because I know that I shake on my first scoring ends, on my first few scoring arrows. My bow arm gets a little bit more shaky than most. You've got that adrenaline in your system. You want to do good. And I know people are watching. That's cool, right? I use everything. But that's why I shoot my practice ends on 1 foot, because it gives me reps in getting loud with the right words at the right moments, because I'm now seeing this huge shaky aim. It's all over the place. I mean, it's out to the black ring.
Yeah.
And sometimes out to the white on a single spot, right? But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I shoot the next person's over target. It doesn't matter in practice, right? I am simply getting reps in bringing my mind out of this huge aim. I get reps in bringing my mind back out of balance, right? Because it goes to, you're going to fall over. So you got to put your foot down every now and again, pick it back up, staying at full draw with my recurve, pick it back up. Now it's really shaky, but I'm still running through my system no matter what. And so everybody else is on the line, shooting shots, trying to hit X's on their practice ends, and they're not practicing the reality that's about to hit them.
Yeah.
They're not practicing the shot that's about to hit them, right?
So what is the benefit of the 1 foot? Is it because it's throwing you off and mentally you have to get past that? Yep.
It forces a giant aim. I mean, shaking like crazy on 1 foot and you're going to fall over. So your mind is pulled, your conscious mind gets pulled into the aim and you get reps in pulling it out. It gets pulled into balance and you get reps in pulling it out. Whereas everybody else is standing on 2 feet just trying to do good. in their practice, making sure everything's good. I know everything's good by the practice ends, right? I've been shooting all day or whatever. And then I'm practicing the reality that's about to happen to my body. And that's something that you have to know. And you won't know that until you shoot these bigger tournaments.
Well, and so the discipline to do that, though, in my own thinking, I'm thinking that's the hard part. Like you said, it's
just a different approach because I know the ultimate skill is the ability to get loud with the right words at the right moments.
That's what I mean. You have to unlearn the way we've done anything all our lives to switch to that.
Well, not necessarily, because this is the skill that you use to get out of bed every day. You don't get out of bed just like willy-nilly, just jump out of bed. Yeah. You're like, I got to get up.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe you've hit the snooze bar a couple times. The snooze bar is just an increase in the volume of thoughts. Any problem is an increase in the volume of thoughts. So alarm goes off. You're like, oh my God, this is so warm. That is a thought. And you hit the snooze bar. When your thoughts are louder than your thinking, you hit the snooze bar, right? 9 minutes goes by, it goes off again. You're like, okay, if I take less time in the shower, I can hit it again. That is a thought, right? So you hit it again. 9 minutes later, it goes off again. And you're like, oh, I have to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to be late for this or that. That has strategy and that has instruction. Get your butt out of bed. Right.
I like that
is when you swing that leg out and you take impact because it's cold. Right.
Yeah.
So this is all just using adversity to practice the ultimate skill.
I like that.
And then understanding what your conversation sounds like. Like, I know what I'm going to say when I shoot my next bull elk. I know when I'm going to say it. And I know how to put my conscious mind in a specific place at a specific moment. Like, I guarantee you've had shots on animals where you talked yourself through it.
So this past season, 30 yards, which in my backyard, that's a gimme. Mm-hmm. I drew back and I noticed my pin I'm like, why the heck am I shaking like this? Mm-hmm. And I had to say, yo, this is 30 yards. Get your act together.
Right.
Boom. Pin went down.
Yep.
Perfect shot.
That's the skill. The skill is not in the shot. The skill is in what you said to bring your conscious mind back to where it needs to be. So we just get very specific and you know what your conversation is in the future.
Right.
Right. Like, I know, like Bodie knows, we're going to draw back an aim. Then we're going to address the trigger. Then we're going to say, here I go. Then we're going to talk ourselves through a pressure increase. And you're going to get so good at that conversation because you did it out loud 5 or 10 times. And by the way, you're not allowed to stop talking out loud until your conversation becomes easy. Until you know what you're going to say. You know the next thing that you're going to say. When that conversation and you're able to teach your shot to somebody else, then you truly understand how you do what you do. Then there's no
I'm going to try this.
Then there's no mystery in your shot anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know that if you encounter a problem, it's because you're not talking. You've allowed the thought volume to get too high.
When you and I did when the Onyx Clicker came out, and you told me about the purpose of the going to the click and then telling yourself, here I go to the next, then push it through. So when Stan came out with the Solex Clicker, the index finger, I was telling people, I went back to that process. Here's my pressure, just do it again. And I was telling people that it calms you down.
Sure.
Having that click there on that.
That click draws the conscious mind into the pressure increase on the release.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been hearing from customers who are like, they're like, what are you talking about? But then they got it and did it. They're like, yeah, it did it. You don't feel like you're going to punch it because you do it once.
Right.
Get to the click.
You get a practice swing at it. And that practice swing brings your mind into the right place at the right time, right? So when you couple that release, or any release really, but that release in particular with the click in it, with this conversation that's not a mystery anymore, you know what you're going to say and you know when you're going to say it. Sure, you're still going to have thoughts come in, but you have the solution. It's your voice is the solution when you say the right words at the right moments. You don't need to talk about your aim. You can talk about your aim all you want. It doesn't get any better. It doesn't shake less when you put your conscious mind into the aim. So we know, just let the visual proprioception take that. As long as it's dancing through the middle, it's as good as it's going to get.
Yeah.
I mean, Bodhi's pin is not on the X every time he hits an X.
Right.
Sometimes it's in the 9 ring, right? But because we've got the bow stabilized and tuned to a certain way, the rate of return is very fast, right? For us, a bow that aims well is a bow that returns to the middle quickly in high stress.
So in his aim, is he like one of the ones who's burning a hole in the X and his pin's just kind of there, or does he look at both?
You look at both as a picture. You look at it as you would look at a picture on the wall with two things that are dancing together, right? And you can, if you have to choose one, I would choose a clear pin in a fuzzy target.
Okay.
If you have to choose one, just as the way your brain works in visual proprioception, if it's got a fuzzy pin but a clear target, it has much more difficulty centering itself.
Yeah.
And if you're using too big of a dot and you're just getting a sliver of gold because you don't want to actually see the middle because your mind's freaked out by it, you're literally fighting your own accuracy. There's no reason to have a dot bigger than the 10 ring through your lens, through your power system. If your dot is bigger than the 10 ring, it doesn't have enough gold to swim in.
To get centered.
So get a little smaller dot, maybe slightly smaller than the inside diameter of the 10 ring, and let that thing dance. That's how these guys are shooting all these middles, right? You don't see very many pros that are shooting giant dots.
Right.
So,
that's interesting.
So we've got some concepts here. We've got thoughts aren't thinking, right? Thoughts are what you hear. Thinking is what you say. Can't control your thoughts, but you can always control the volume of your thinking. You've got the ultimate skill of the human being, the ability to get loud in your head with the right words at the right moments. You've got the mental game equation, right? Understanding where to put your conscious mind, when to put it there, and how to put it there. You can take, like I was talking after the Rogan podcast, like all these people were calling me with their problems. And can you do what you do at Shot IQ with my problem? And I'm like, I don't know yet, because I had not at that time defined the mental game equation. So once I got all these problems coming in, that's when I started to have to figure out, okay, what is the formula to solve all of these problems at once? And so now you just take a problem and you plug it into the equation. Like I had an Olympic decathlon coach call me, and I'm like, okay, I don't know anything about the decathlon. I don't even know what disciplines are in the decathlon. I didn't even know that there was 10 of them, hence the name, right? So I'm oblivious to the decathlon.
I think you throw something and you run.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, coach, I'm like, give me the biggest problem in the decathlon. And he's like, well, I'll tell you right now, the biggest problem is with the long jumpers. I'm like, oh, okay, well, do tell. So he tells me that the long jumpers, as they're running down the lane, right before they put their foot on the launch pad, they involuntarily put their shoulders back, which kills the momentum of their jump.
They're bracing for the impact.
They're bracing for the impact.
Or the explosion. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, coach, let's plug it into the mental game equation. I said, where do you want their conscious mind? And he said, I want it in the longest jump possible. I said, nah, that's not the problem. The problem is in the shoulders, right? So where do you want their conscious mind? You need it in their shoulders and keeping those shoulders forward. When do you need it there? Specifically in the long jump, there's a very specific moment of truth. It's right before your foot hits the launch board.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we've got the where and the when. The how is always speech. So as they're running down the lane, right before they put their foot on the launch board, they say shoulders or they say forward, and that will put the conscious mind in the problem area and keep it out of the actual motor program. Like most sports are a complete reversal of archery. In archery, you're trying to put your conscious mind into a closed loop movement which is the pressure increase on the trigger. Slow enough you could stop it, right?
Right.
In most other sports, you're trying to keep your conscious mind out of the movement. Because if you put your conscious mind in a movement that's supposed to be automatic, subconsciously driven, it will alter the motor program. So in the online course, I've got all kinds of ways to show you what this looks like and feels like. But like, have you ever coached basketball or anything like that?
I have not.
So when you ask good free throw shooters, what's the mental game of shooting a free throw? Not knowing the mental game equation, they will tell you that they put their conscious mind in vision, because they'll say something about the rim. Okay? Amateur basketball players will talk about the movement. They will talk about the follow through or their fingers or whatever. So they're actually putting their conscious mind into the movement of shooting the basketball, and it alters the motor program. And you're not putting your conscious mind in the governing body, which is vision, right? So a lot of archers, like let's take an archer that is a self-proclaimed trigger puncher. They're a command shooter, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their mental game is different than the mental game of a surprise break shooter. So the mental game is in the aim. So where do they want their conscious mind? In the aim. When do they put it there? When they're about to punch the trigger, right? When they get the full draw, their entire world is about the aim.
Yeah.
How do they put it there? Speech. So they're talking about their aim. The problem is, now this is the science of it. This is not my opinion.
Yeah.
The science of punching a trigger is that you allow the subconscious to fire the trigger. And when you do that, the subconscious will always link flinching movements to the trigger motor program. That's not my opinion. That is exactly how it works.
Right.
So that's what you're seeing in command shooters is the subconscious is firing it. There is a pre-ignition movement linked to the trigger motor program, but they have their bows weighted up so much that it minimizes the range of motion of the pre-ignition movement. Now, when they hit the trigger, the problem is they don't know which pre-ignition movement is coming. So if they have a slight micro collapse normally linked to their trigger motor program, if they leave their thumb off of the trigger, now you'll see this is the inconsistency with command shooters. And there's some very good ones out there. I'm not taking anything away from them.
For sure.
But if they leave a millimeter, a half a millimeter of space between the thumb and the trigger before they punch it, that opens up the floodgate and allows the pre-ignition movement to have just slightly more range of motion. And that's when they miss the X. And you can see it coming. Like I can literally see these people miss before they shoot.
Yeah.
Because if they come onto the trigger slowly, and this is a piece of advice for them, I guess, if they want to take it, I don't know if they want to take it or not. But if you don't punch the trigger from the exact same preload every time, it's going to go in a different place.
I've heard Tim talk about, say, well, I'm a command shooter, so the sight picture dictates the shot.
Right.
And
that's
about
true of all command shooters. That's how it has to work. So they have to have their bow weighted up so that the pin is in the middle long enough for their brain to recognize that it's in the middle. It sends the signal to the brain. The brain then sends the trigger motor program. The problem is the subconscious is able to do that, and it will always link the pre-ignition movements to it. So for a command shooter, form is more important than a surprise break shooter.
Right.
But if you take a surprise break shooter that has kind of iffy form and then they slip up and shoot a command shot, it never goes in the middle because their form can't support it.
I can verify it never goes in the middle.
Their form just can't support it.
Yeah.
So if somebody's leaning way back or whatever and they've got their bow super weighted, when they go open loop on a trigger and those pre-ignition movements are linked to the trigger motor program, it's always out of the X.
It's bad.
And I can see it. I mean, I can see it happening. I'm in the coach's box. I'm looking at them. I'm like, oh, here it comes. Because it's very telltale. When they bring their thumb to the trigger slowly, that's when they leave the gap.
Huh.
When they bring their trigger their thumb to the trigger quickly, they're in their normal cycle. They're going to shoot it from the same preload. It's probably going right in the middle.
Yeah.
Right? But it's that one, and I'm watching for it. I'm over there watching them from the coach's box. I'm like, ooh, there it was. I'm like, okay, Bodie, sweep the leg.
So I imagine for you, the uphill climb has to be to get people to do this in practice consistently. Because I could see in it a lot of places where you can say, I'm just going to do it this way. And then you're just lost the whole thing.
Sure. And, there's a reality to this whole thing. Like the level of archery is significantly higher than it was 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
It's significantly higher because, and I'm hoping that I have had something to do with that. Right.
Yeah.
And I know that Bodie has had something to do with that, because if you don't have your stuff squared away, he's probably going to beat you.
Yep.
Right.
For sure.
So the level of archery has risen. And when you look at the very tippy top of these tier one of tier one shooters, right? Those people that are always usually in the top 3 or 4, it is because we have figured out to lessen the input into the shot. That's the real key to it. We have figured out how to lessen the input into the shot. But to lessen input into the shot, and I'll explain what that is in a second, you first have to have massive mental control. Because when you look at it from just a how things work standpoint, the most accurate way to shoot any release is single-digit pressure increase. Right? Like if you could take an index finger trigger and you increase pressure on it like you would a fine rifle trigger, and you keep, you're able to maintain back tension. Well, I mean, that's the most accurate way there is to shoot an index finger trigger.
Yeah.
But that's very difficult to control. Like it's at the top end of control. So a thumb button is the next level, right? So what did we used to do on a thumb button? We used to wrap in and pull, right? We used to wrap in and pull. What did we used to do with the hinge? We used to pull on that thing. The days of people winning by pulling on releases is over. You don't see people winning anymore that are pulling on releases. It's too big of an input. Yes, it might be a totally controlled surprise break shot, but because the input is too big and it's too hard to keep consistent, you're not going to be able to shoot 30x games that way. You might every now and again, but especially under stress, if you're putting this huge input into the shot, you're probably going to get beat by somebody that has less input. So
I'm trying to think of the last time a hinge shooter won one of those.
Well, I mean, I think wasn't Nico Gerard shooting a hinge this year?
Oh, was he?
At Vegas?
Okay, gotcha. I don't know. I
Chris
don't know.
Perkins was certainly shooting a hinge.
Oh yeah,
right?
That's right. Yeah, so, yeah.
I mean, but the way they shoot hinges is not by pulling anymore. It's by rolling their fingers.
Yeah.
Right. It's finger pressure differences. It's not pulling anymore.
Right.
So with Bodie's thumb button, we've gone to a very light trigger. Right. So it's just an increase in pressure with his thumb. He's not having to even squeeze his whole hand. It's very minimal input. So that's a key takeaway for folks that are listening to this. If you want to get to that level, you first have to have control. You have to be shooting a surprise break shot every single time, no matter what. You got to know what mental game you're playing. You got to know the ultimate skill of the human being. You got to know that thoughts aren't thinking. You got to know all those things. You got to know open and closed loop control systems. You have to know all those things so that you have this massive level of control and you have a toolbox built for when the thoughts get too loud. Once you have all those things in place, then you can start to minimize the input into your shot where it's just single digit pressure increases. but everything else has got to be right. I mean, your rate of return's got to be right. All these things have to come together, right? So that's how we do what we do. There's no mystery in it anymore. The code, as Grind said, has been cracked.
Why do you think Bodie is so good at it?
Because he's been doing it since he was 10 and a half months old. But so here's the key to that, though, right? Like, I see all these kids that are out there on the line punching triggers.
Yeah.
And their coaches are trying to fix things that they're not fixing it in the right way. So when I say that, not the right way, it's not my way. It's just the way of how our brain works.
Yeah.
And these kids are getting very frustrated. Well, when I watched Bodie punch his first trigger at 3 years old, I said, we're not doing that, kid. Right?
He wasn't allowed to come home.
Well, no, I mean, he had to stay out in the cold and live in a tent for a while. No. So, but when I watched him, I bought him his first compound with a release aid at 3. And what did he do with that little index finger trigger? He got his little finger on there and boop, he
for sure.
Because that's normal.
Yeah.
Right? So what did I do? Very key takeaway here for folks. I had Bodie shoot a resistance activated release. Why is that? Because a resistance activated release has a safety on it.
Yeah.
Which mechanically separates the mind from the aim. Like, you don't take the safety off until after you have aimed. Yeah. And then it puts you in a somewhat proper archery movement. Yes, it's big input. That's why there's no professional archer shooting a resistance release.
Yep.
Right? It's a big input, but it's the easiest to control. So there's little Bodie at 3 years old, shooting barebow, anchoring way up here by his eyeball, draw back and aim, because I didn't let him shoot a sight until he was like 9, right? So he'd push in that safety, he'd draw back, and he'd get that little thing by his eyeball, and he's left eye dominant. So the arrow's coming in from way over here, right? So he would aim, then he would take the safety off, and then he just pulls, boom, and that thing would break.
Yeah.
And so that's how to get a mind mechanically separated from the aim. So I just want to take all these kids that are in all these programs, and I just want to take them and go, here's a resistance activated release. Here's how you shoot it. And the first time I have them shoot it, coaches, take note, I screw the thing down to where it won't go off. Right? Because then what do you see? You see them, they safety in, they draw back and aim, they take the safety off, and they start pulling a little bit, and then they give it that big old yank. As soon as the thoughts get louder than the thinking, the subconscious will take it away. And you ask them, what were you saying? Well, I was saying pull, but then I said, when's this thing going to go off, right? And so that's when the subconscious comes in and yanks it. Well, that usually happens for a couple of shots. And then you can start to, once they start pulling, they're pulling to where they're shaking, but they're not yanking it.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, what were you saying? Well, I was just saying pull, keep pulling, right? And once you get them to actually put their conscious mind in the right place at the right time with the use of words, then you can start to loosen the release to where it will actually go off. Make them work at it, though, right? Don't make it where they can just barely pull and it goes off. Make them work at it. And then you've got a kid that knows how to separate from the aim. Like, you don't put your thumb on the button until after the aim is complete. But you see, most people that are punching triggers, they draw back and instantly put their finger on the trigger. And then their aim dictates when they punch the trigger.
So do you think, like you're saying, okay, this is, something that's obvious that people just haven't mastered yet. Bodie is still arguably the best out there to do it. How come nobody's caught him yet? Is it because he's been doing it longer than other people have?
Well, people are just now starting to realize that input is the key, right? So Fullerton knows that.
Yeah.
That's why Bodie and Fullerton are going to battle it out for decades.
Yep.
Right? They're going to see who's got the least amount of input in their shot, because they're both shooting surprise breaks.
Mm-hmm.
But Bodie's mind, I think, is a bit stronger. I think his toolbox is a bit deeper than most, because he's been building it. He's been building it his whole life.
Yeah.
So this is, this podcast, if somebody wants to become a professional archer, they have to listen to this. I mean, I just spilled the whole beans of this thing. Right?
That's it. So, no more shot IQ. Who's going to come anymore?
I mean, to know how to do some of these things, you're going to have to tune into the old online course. But
for sure, no.
Like it's,
and this is what happens to me. So when you came down for the release of the Onyx Clicker, you were telling me all this. So then for that first little bit afterwards, all of that was fresh in my brain and it all worked, and then it all went away.
Right. It all went away because it was new, right? It was novel, and you were in the honeymoon stages of it.
Yes.
But here's what you need to capture. Like if you do get a new release or a new bow or whatever, and you're very conscious about what's going on, you're in the honeymoon stages of it, right?
Yeah.
Never leave that.
Yes.
Because that's when the process is the purest. And that is when you are talking yourself through it. It goes away because you stopped talking, because you may not have realized how important the talking was. Now you're going to get to a point where, and this is where I want people to get to, like, do you honestly think that Bodhi has to talk himself through every shot? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Like, he doesn't have to talk unless he encounters a problem where the thoughts get too loud. And then he's got the solution right there. His toolbox is right there. He knows exactly how to solve that problem. I don't have to talk myself through shots, but when I'm shooting at a bull elk, oh my gosh, I am screaming to myself because I have encountered a problem.
Yeah.
Which increases the volume of thoughts. Antlers are nothing more than a thought volume increaser. That's all they are. Right?
Yeah, but when they're pretty big, it's pretty loud.
Right. That's why you can shoot does so easily. But you shoot a big old buck and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to be a hero. That has no instruction. It has no strategy. It is a thought. It cannot solve the problem of you putting an arrow through the lungs of that deer.
The biggest bucks I have ever encountered in shooting situations, Joel, there's 3 of them I can see in my head. I missed all 3. All 3.
And you didn't talk during those.
Makeable shots. I know they were makeable. I missed all 3.
Yep. I've missed so many bull elk standing within 20 yards, it will make your head spin. Because I did not know that I should be using my bow to practice the ultimate skill. Yeah. When you know the ultimate skill, getting loud in your head with the right words at the right moments, when you know that that's the skill we're all chasing, then you start to use your life differently. You start to use the experiences that you're having to practice that skill, because that is the separator between elite and non-elite people. Who gets the loudest with the right words at the right moment? Because when you were successful, you got loud with the right words at the right moment. When you were unsuccessful, you didn't do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know what it is to get loud in their head. And that's where, the online course comes in with, we have drills that show you what it sounds like, what it feels like to get loud in your head. What does it feel like and what does it sound like to override your own central nervous system? Right? But we do it all the time. Again, master of the unknown obvious. We do it all the time, but we don't know how we do it.
Yeah.
So, a coach may be a phenomenal shooter, but because they didn't tap into this, how they did it, they only teach the physicality of what they did and not the mentality.
Yeah.
Because everybody's looking at what bow is Levi Morgan shooting? What arrows is he shooting? What release is he shooting? All these things. They don't ask Levi, hey, what do you say when you shoot?
Yeah.
And when do you say it specifically? If they'd ask him that, then they could get the answers that they're seeking. How do I become like Levi? How do I become like Bodhi?
Going back to the honeymoon phase, I often thought if I could shoot 3 different bows with 3 different releases, I could probably shoot a pretty clean 900 round. One shot,
that
one
was
shot,
the old
one
trick,
shot.
Right? That was the old Randy Ulmer trick of having 5 releases in your pouch and one of them doesn't fire.
Just keep switching
set differently, right? So, but that's not really I mean, it is a solution, but it's just a patch.
Yeah.
Because if there's no mystery in your shot, then it's way more powerful to be able to do that for sure.
So what's it been like for you? You retired actually from the sheriff's department, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You retired from it. What's it been like going around the world? Has it been around the world or just North America?
No, I've been to Australia, New Zealand.
Okay.
I've done clinics all over the place. I'm in Canada sometimes, and it is fascinating to me to really turn the light bulbs on for people and just make them go, huh, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah. Well, did you ever think it, because I know you went and talked to the Philadelphia Phillies. Mm-hmm. Did you ever think that it would go beyond archery to where it has?
I didn't. And I didn't pursue that until getting on the Rogan podcast. And evidently when you get on the Rogan podcast, you become an expert in everything. So it was, and that was the fascinating part, is I was able to, once we figured out the mental game equation, once we figured out the ultimate skill, thoughts aren't thinking, all these things, then you're able to take just about anything in life and have the solution to the mental game, right?
Right.
And so that's what seems to drive just about everything. And so it's just been fascinating for me when, like, I'm going down in June to talk to a sales team.
Yeah.
They're training their salespeople. And I always try to get, the precursor to one of my talks. I always try to, give me a problem that you're having in your organization. And then we plug that into the mental game equation, and that's, people learn how to use that equation and just plug problems in and get the solutions to them. And you become the ultimate problem solver.
Right.
Once you take the mystery out of these things.
So I'm sitting here thinking, so like you were talking about with confidence, mm-hmm. If there was one thing that I would say I have confidence in, is my ability to write. That's mm-hmm. what I've been doing for 40 years. Mm-hmm. Professionally. And sure. I see it that, I worked daily newspapers for 25 years. Mm-hmm. So there was stuff where you came back and it was like, hey, you got to write this now and you have 45 minutes to do it. Mm-hmm. That's where I would say I always had the confidence I can do this. And it was what gets people stuck is when they start thinking about it, that, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? I only got 45 minutes. But if I could just say, I got to start doing this now and just did it, then it was fine. And I had the confidence that you're talking about.
Those that are stuck in, gosh, how am I going to do this? Oh my gosh, I've only got 45 minutes. Those are thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. Like I was sitting in the turkey blind 2 days ago, and I was by myself because I was just watching and calling for my buddy who was in a turkey blind just 30 yards from me. And I'm in this, it was actually a little treehouse looking thing. And I'm in this, and I've got this story running through my head of the turkey hunt from a turkey's perspective, right? And
I did see that.
Right,
Yeah.
I got this story that's rolling through my head, and these, the names of Hooks Half Inch and Jake Jagerson and Jimmy Struts and all these things.
Yes.
And I'm like, and it just keeps going. And I'm like, well, how's this going to look? And I'm like, just hit the freaking record button, stupid. Right? So that's the same thing as you. Just get it done. And then things start to flow because you know how to write and you know what you want. Yeah. You know exactly how you want it to sound. Just, you got to hit the record button. You got to put pen to paper, get typing, right? Whatever it is.
Start going.
And that's the same thing. Like, think about a salesperson that's sitting there looking at their phone like, gosh, I don't want to do another cold call. Right? Because they're going to get yelled at. They're going to, whatever. People are going to hang up on them until you're like, well, I'm just going to do it.
Just do it.
They've got the number sitting there on their phone. Like, I just got to do it.
Yeah.
Right? That's the skill.
Yeah.
It's the skill of getting loud with the right words at the right moments.
Yeah.
Right? Because we know how to do these things.
Right.
But until we actually get going, that's why.
Yeah. So I had people ask when I was doing that, how do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you write in that situation? Well, like you said, I could never explain it. I don't know. Right. I just sit down and start doing it. Because
they didn't ask you. They asked you how you did it.
Yeah.
They did not ask you, what are you
thinking? Yeah, right.
And be careful with that, because if you ask somebody what they're thinking and they don't know the difference between thoughts and thinking, they'll always tell you their thoughts.
Yeah.
So if you want to mine information from somebody, like, how do you really do what you do? You don't ask them what they're thinking. You ask them, what are you saying in your head right now?
Yeah.
Right before you start typing, what do you say in your head? And if you say, just get this thing done, just
get it done.
Right?
Yeah.
That would instantly tell that person exactly how you do what you do.
Right.
And then they can go have their own theme or whatever on their writing or their sales call or whatever it may be.
Whatever. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the difference, and that's how we do what we do. We just now do it to the nth degree in an archery shot. That's why, when you start on your pressure increase, you're not just, okay, pull, it's, okay, easy now, just a little bit. Okay, that's good. I can feel that. Stay in that. Squeeze, right? You got to press on the gas a little bit. The speedometer's got to come up a little bit so you can actually get things moving.
The problem for me with that, Joel, is when I do that, what you're talking about, yes, they almost invariably are perfect shots. Mm-hmm. The problem is when I when I get to just hit it now. Sometimes it goes in, and that's the problem.
Sometimes it does.
Sometimes.
And when it does, the subconscious is like, you see, we don't need to listen to old Turner.
Exactly.
We got this, right? So but the problem is that you can't blueprint that.
No.
That's a mystery, right?
And then the next time it doesn't work.
Right. I want people to be able to demystify how they do what they do.
Yeah.
You should feel dirty if you punch a trigger, right? When you're trying to shoot a surprise break and you're like, oh, that one got away from me. You're like,
yes.
All you got to do is ask yourself, what did I say and when did I say it? And you'll go, I wasn't loud enough. I didn't say anything. Wrong words, wrong moments, whatever.
Yeah.
So, but when you speak out loud, this commentary shooting, commentary skill building, whatever it is,
I'm going to try that.
Then you know exactly what you say and when you say it. And you get the opportunity to teach it. We all know you don't truly understand something until you can teach it.
Sure.
So you keep talking out loud until your conversation becomes easy. And that's what we do. People that purchase the course, they send me videos of their commentary shot. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe you've got the here I go and addressing the trigger backwards, right? There's a very specific reason why we follow this sequence. Draw back and aim. Then you address the trigger. Then you say, here I go. Then you talk.
Yeah.
Right?
Huh. Yeah. I'm going to try that. I'm looking forward to this.
Don't try it.
It's going to be cool.
Right?
I mean, I'm going to do it. Yes.
Failure is an option.
So on a unrelated subject somewhat, I wanted to ask you, because when we talked to Bodie, it hadn't happened yet. Mm-hmm. Bodie in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Is he going to try out?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
okay.
That is priority number one.
I figured he might be thinking that. Yeah. Because I know he has dabbled in that 50-meter game and been successful at it. But
does really well at it.
Yeah. Hasn't prioritized that.
Right. But now
previously.
Yeah. Now that is a thing. That is a big thing. So there's going to be, the competition is going to be massive. There's so many good shooters out there, and we're going to put this zero input or little input shot to the test because, sometimes if there's wind, it's tough to beat the command shooters. Right. So it's, it's going to be anybody's game, but I'll guarantee you Bodie's going to be right there in the top with everybody else. So
I would be surprised if he wasn't. Yeah.
I'm just happy that it happened, and hopefully it can get expanded.
Yeah.
So we're super excited. That's definitely happening.
It's 28.
Yep. 2028.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't think they've figured out what the trials are or anything.
No. Yeah. Haven't announced that.
It's going to be,
I think
battle royale for sure.
I think when we asked him, I think he mentioned that the 50-meter game was his least favorite.
One of his. But that's his, when he group tunes a bow, that's what he does, right? Like he has to, his thing is he has to put, he shoots a massive amount of arrows.
Yeah.
Like he'll put 12 arrows in the 10 ring on a Vegas face at 50 meters.
Yeah.
Like if it doesn't do that, it doesn't work out.
It's got to keep
So
working.
then that's when he'll start tweaking things, a little left, a little right, a little up, a little down, till that group comes into that size. And he's very good at that. I mean, he's good at shooting a bow. He's good at getting loud with the right words at the right moments. That's what he's good at.
There's games that you like to play, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not good at the other ones.
Right.
Just because you don't like it doesn't mean you're not good at it.
Yeah, like our favorite game is NFAA Field.
Yeah, right.
And, but look at what Bodie does in indoor. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Not his favorite game, but there's just, yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be battle royale. The level's going to be huge.
So he graduates this year,
June. Yep.
So then I'm guessing like USATs will be on the schedule.
Oh yeah.
Like any visions of doing the World Cup, going all around the world?
Well, he'll go wherever he needs to go to get ready for the Olympics.
Gotcha.
So he'll shoot on other stages wherever he needs to go. But that's 3 years away. But it's
still time to do that.
In that time, so he won't have school. He'll be doing archery is his job. But like I said, the cool thing about Bodie is that he teaches.
Yeah.
And when he teaches, he just gets better at what he does.
Right.
When you're able to transfer that information to other people, you truly understand how you do what you do. Like Bodie is a master at technicalities in archery, shooting uphill, shooting downhill, shooting side hills, third axis, bow stabilization to get that pin doing exactly what you want it to do. He's a master at that. And that is all him. He has figured all those things out. Because the old man's sitting here shooting a stick bow, right?
Yeah.
But the mentality, the mental game, all those things are from Shot IQ, and he has lived it. And I've never sat Bodie down and said, "Okay, Bodie, this is how we do what we do." He's heard the speech so many times and been able to apply it to his own life and his own archery. And that's that separating factor. So if people want to get their kids in control, resistance activated releases are key.
What a cool time for him and you, for the whole family, though.
Oh, yeah.
One of the best shooters in the world is graduating high school, and they add Olympics, or they add his game, they add to the Olympics.
Yes. Very
That's
exciting.
Just like perfect timing for all of you, for you and the missus. And
I got to retire because my son won Vegas. At 15 years old. How cool is that for a dad?
Yeah.
Right? I got to retire from law enforcement him winning Vegas gave Shot IQ the credibility that it needed to take off.
Right.
And now it's just undeniable.
Yeah.
And that's the key to the whole thing.
That's cool. Yeah. What does Sarah think about all this?
Oh, she's super excited. Yeah.
Bodie in the Olympics. That's got to be. It looks like it's just going to be one male, one female.
Right.
But you got to feel like, well, if there is one, it's a pretty good choice.
Well,
it's a pretty good bet.
There's a chance. Like I said, there's a lot of great shooters out there.
For sure.
I want to know what they're going to do for the coaching. Like, what's the Olympic coach going to be? Like, is it going to be, are they just going to, in the past, they've just used the recurve coach. Well, I don't know what the new Olympic coach knows about compound.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and not that the archers need coaching.
Right.
Like the compound folks, it's not as technical as shooting a recurve bow.
Right.
So the coaching doesn't have to be so much on the physical side, but man, the mentality of it, that there may need to be some coaching there. Very few. I don't know if any of the professional archers really have a coach around the world.
For sure. Yeah.
Because most of the coaches are not at the level that, because this level's never been reached before.
Right.
So I don't know, whoever the coach is, I'm going to be pulling on their ear, man, because I have some things to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess they haven't really mentioned if do we even have a recurve head coach since Kizik Lee left?
Yeah, we do have a coach. He's from Spain.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
I can't give you his name right now, and I apologize for that. But
no, I remember that now.
I've already reached out to him and said, I got some things for you. I've trained some folks. So
yeah, that's interesting. But I know it's kind of like, some of the best archers there they kind of did their own thing anyway. Right. I'm thinking Casey and Brady, they kind of had their own coaching and they did their own thing.
Sure. I've had the honor of training Casey a couple times. Yeah. So, and it's been amazing, right, to see what she's done. And but in the compound side, very few of these compound amazing shooters have had coaching at the level they're at now, because there's no coaches that have ever been there. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got all these great recurve shooters that have, become coaches and hopefully understand how they do what they do. But in the compound world,
hasn't really happened
because it's never been there before.
Yeah. Rio Wild went to Korea there and coached that team for a year, I think it was. But that's kind of the highest level in the compound world that I can recall. Martin Damsbo, he's been coaching for a while.
Sergio Pani, Braden Gillantine, right? These are amazing shooters, but they were shooters of a certain era.
Yes, right.
They're not shooters of this era.
Of this one, right?
The level is higher now. And this is not taking anything away from those people, but we cannot deny that the accuracy level of archery is beyond what it has ever been.
It took, I forget how many years at the Classic before Rio shot the first 660.
Right.
And then it was a couple years, and then Braden shot the next one. Mm-hmm. And then a couple years, and then Bodie, he shot 3.
Right.
I think he missed one of the years in the 4.
Yep.
But, you can't deny that it was however many years until we got to Rio, and then it was 1.
Right. And then you look at the progression of Vegas, right? There wasn't a 900 shot for years, 10 years in there.
Yeah.
So there was a 10-year period where one was shot, and then there wasn't another shot for forever.
Yeah.
So that was the era of pulling on releases.
Yeah, right.
And whoever could pull the most consistently or expand the most consistently was the winner. That's no longer the case.
That's not the way it is. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, now we get 30 of them.
Yeah, now we got 30 of them. But even within that 30, you've got the people that shoot normally 28X to 27, 28Xs.
Right.
And they're starting to fall off earlier and earlier. And then you get to that tier 1 of tier 1. And those are the minimal input shooters.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no question that every year a large portion of the 30 are like, oh, this is the first year they did it, or it's been a couple years since they did it. But then there's the handful of, they're going to do it every year.
Right. And those are the ones that have the best toolbox. Those are the ones that get the loudest when they need to.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, cool. Well, oh, man, we burned through an hour quickly there, Joel.
All right.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about? Because, that's all fascinating stuff. And I think, like you said, you laid it out there. Hey, this is the way to do it. Can you do it?
Right.
As you said, we all do it. Can you apply it to archery?
When you do it, make sure you blueprint it. The blueprint is, what did I say and when did I say it?
Yeah.
Right. And how did I actually get loud? And once you start looking at things from this different angle and just using your shots, using adversity, shoot on 1 foot, right? Still working through your trigger perfectly. Have some, I took Josh Bomar and dumped a 5-gallon bucket of water over his head while he's at full draw. And he still had to work through his clicker.
Yeah.
Right. So find adversity in your shooting. Shoot as many high stakes tournaments as you can, because that yellow line will teach you everything you need to know as long as you're willing to learn.
I've seen you walk behind archers with an arrow and tap on their bowstring, things like that. Same with pouring the bucket over Josh. What does that do? What's the purpose of that? Distraction.
So when you distract somebody, all you do is you increase the volume of their thoughts, right? Okay. So I'm tapping on a bowstring, which moves the peep sight, right? And they're like, oh my God, what's this guy doing? Oh, wait a minute. That doesn't matter. Just stay in your business, right? Okay. So they get reps in getting loud with the right words at the right moments.
Okay, gotcha.
Right? So all the distractions I'm providing for folks, like when people come to my clinic, the first thing they do is they shoot in front of everybody. And I'm asking them how they do what they do. And I'm razzing them and doing all this thing. Easy to break them. Yeah. Right? And they punch the trigger, whatever they do. But at the end of the clinic, no matter what I do to them, they use it. So by the end of the clinic, by the end of that 5 hours, they are in total control of their shot and they understand exactly how they did it. It's very powerful to demystify how you do what you do.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Yeah.
I like that for an ending spot.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right. First off, Joel Turner, appreciate your time. Appreciate everything that you do. You know, for folks who don't know you, we see you at the tournaments. You'll talk to anybody, tell them all this stuff. Right. It's just cool to see someone with your enthusiasm for the game.
Yeah, I love it. I just love turning that light bulb on for people. So.
All right, folks, that is another episode of the Competition Archery Media Podcast. You can find it on all the platforms where you find your favorite podcasts. Thanks for joining us today.